morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday Extravaganza. I am your host, Mr. Kadish, and joining me today is my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Dutch Butters himself. How you doing, Dutch?
Well, hello, sir. Hello, everybody. Here we are. I'm here, woefully unprepared. I glanced over the articles. I have not watched any movies or television for like the last 3 months. I don't know
your
what's
typical
going on.
level of
Pretty normal.
Yeah.
Pretty normal. Yes. Yes, sir. Let's go. All right. Let's have a good day. Okay.
And he's here, and he likes wieners. Apparently, Brian from the Popcast. You want to show everyone your new your new hat?
You guys want to see my new hat?
Yeah, I want to see your new hat. This is nice.
I love wieners.
Is that a wiener schnitzel hat? Is that what that is?
Ironically, it doesn't fit my fat head.
Ask me about my
I've had too many wiener schnitzels. So I actually got this for free for being a premium member.
Yeah, I bet you did.
I remember when you were a premium member of Panera Bread and used to get those energy drinks.
Yep, the Chargers, bro.
Just mainlined into your veins.
They outlawed them because apparently people are having heart attacks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like Boogie on stream, right?
Yeah. Where Boogie went.
Yeah. Speaking of boogieing, we got Odin from OMB Reviews. How you doing, Odin?
Oh yeah, because every time anyone hears me, they think boogie. Let's boogie down.
Let's boogie down.
No, Odin, when anybody thinks of you, they think of wieners. So
yes.
I think of shells and pineapple pizza.
Ask me about my wiener. That's a great film.
Yes.
It is.
In the chat, if you can name what that line is from, the movie that line is from, I will give you a thumbs up.
That's a fun word, wiener. That's just
wiener.
Wiener Schnitzel. Yes.
Yeah.
Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah.
You know who isn't a wiener is our special guest, Robert Meyer Burnett.
I don't know. Robert? I think there's a lot of people on the internet that would beg to differ with you, but thank you. Thank you.
Especially on Twitter for some reason.
Yeah, and they would change the word wiener to something that probably started with a D or a C. Just saying. But
Master Wordsmiths on Twitter. Yes.
See you again next Tuesday.
I said good day, sir. Yes. Guys, we got our
good to be back with you, gents.
Good to have you back.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to give a big shout out to Made You Say Butts, who's our top super chatter. He dropped a 300 on us during a live stream. So
wow.
Appreciate him. Our top contributor is still Scotty Dub by a hair. So thank you, Scotty Dub. Mexican Iron Man is our most consistent donator. And then, of course, we have Jillian H., Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg, who are our most consistent membership gifting people. So appreciate you guys.
You know, Major Chai Chai is a real major.
Oh, I believe it.
She is.
He's majorly awesome.
She.
Really?
She.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Air Force Major.
Damn.
Oh, okay.
Indeed.
Didn't mean to misgender you.
Thank you for your service, ma'am.
The great thing about her is she doesn't mind.
All right. Well, Juliet,
takes a lot to trigger Major Chai Chai,
who's been a member for 6 months. She says, "Good evening, Salt Nerds panel and chat." Yes. Good evening, Juliet. Appreciate you. And we got the titular Major Chai Chai. She gifted 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships. Thank you very much, Major Chai Chai. Appreciate you. And of course, Eric Winberg dropping his obligatory 1 Salty Nerd Podcast gifted membership. Thank you so much, Eric. Really, really appreciate you guys. So Tom Connors, I guess, is still eating cereal. He's a very busy man.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yes. But before we get going, just want to say that we are trying to get to 10 new members during this live stream. So we've already hit 6 new memberships. So we just need 4 more to hit our goals. Appreciate you guys. Also, we're trying to hit our 25K subscriber goal. So if you guys know someone who might like our type of show or our channel, send them our way. Ask them to subscribe. Show us some love. And of course, if you want to be part of the Salty Nerd community when we are not live, go over to saltynerddiscord.com and join our Discord server. It's super easy to do. And I also want to give a shout out to friend of the show, Mephisto's Movie Reviews. He does a regular Saturday live stream as well. It's called The Real McCoy. It's definitely worth checking out. But you know what else is worth checking out, guys? Is The Brain Show, which happens right after Salty Saturdays.
Yeah.
12:30 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern time. Brian, what are you guys talking about today?
Ooh, Tesla's burning down, JFK files, severance, all kinds of really fun stuff. It's going to be a good day. The Department of Education just got gutted, which is fun. And we no longer trust the government.
I was just telling Matt Vader, or I should say Dutch Butters. Sorry, I didn't mean to dead name you.
How dare you?
Um,
Oh my God.
I watched the season finale of Severance last night, and it was quite the interesting finale for the second season.
Indeed.
And I said, that's fascinating. Someday I might have to watch that show.
It's a show you cannot watch while doing something else. Like I watch a lot of my TV while working. That show you have to really pay attention to.
I replied to him. I go, that's really cool, Matt. I've been watching this old show on Roku, the Roku channel with David Spade and Patrick Warburton with my wife. It's Rules of Engagement, one of the best sitcoms ever made. Really
great
funny,
show.
dude.
Great
Really
show.
funny.
Well,
But,
hey guys, do you know what show people aren't watching? Apparently, it's Star Trek, because Star Trek is dying.
he hates it.
And before we get into this, I want to welcome Tom Connors Jr. to the panel. Glad you could join us today, Tom.
Star Trek
very
has
kind
been
of you to
dead
show
for like a decade.
I know, right?
Well, everyone knows this, except apparently, Paramount was a little bit not so quick to acknowledge this.
Well, is that a Mad Max movie? Is that what that's?
No, so this is Section 31, and this is an article where basically this guy, this actor here, I think his name is Rob Kaczynski. Basically, he considers himself to be a true Star Trek fan, and when he was approached to be in this movie, he was like, who the fuck wants to watch a movie about Section 31? And on this podcast, he was like, when I got this job, I was like, why are they doing a Section 31 movie? It's going to be hated from the get-go. No one's going to want to watch a Section 31 movie, and we're doing a TV budget movie. This isn't going to be what people want. Then I spoke to Alex Kurtzman, and I spoke to the director of the special, and they explained to me that Star Trek is dying. I don't know if people know that. I was talking about Star Trek at the gym. I'm a boxer, and I train with a lot of kids, and none of them knew what Star Trek was. Can you imagine that? I mean, just conceive of that for a second. I would say Star Trek, and they were like, Star Wars? And I'm like, no, Star Trek. And they're like, I think I've heard of it. Now, that was pretty upsetting for me. Star Trek's fan base has never been enormous. It's always been small and incredibly passionate group. It's never compared to the Harry Potter fan groups or the Star Wars fan groups. It's never had hundreds of millions of fans around the world. I don't know about that.
What?
It's always been a dedicated group, and that dedicated group is aging, and we really are going to lose Star Trek if we don't bring in new fans, new eyes, and new ways of getting people to love the things that we love. Once I'd heard this, I was 100% behind the movie. It was, you have to make different flavors of Star Trek for a different time. You have to try to bring in new people, as that's what Starfleet Academy is going to be about. That's what Section 31 is about. I'm sorry to say it. It wasn't made for the people that love Star Trek. It was made to make people want to learn more about Star Trek. That was the idea. It was for it to bring in new eyes and new people to introduce them to that world. Now, guys, I'm a big believer in the idea that, like, if you make stuff that's not for a fan base, then it's not really for that fan base, right? So I want to throw this to Robert. Robert, what's your take on this, that Alex Kurtzman fully admits that Star Trek is dying, but he doesn't seem to want to admit that he's the one responsible for it dying, because he's not making Star Trek shows. He's making a hybrid Star Wars thing.
Well, look, first and foremost, Star Trek worked because it's allegorical. And in a science fiction fantasy context, Star Trek was telling stories about our world today. I mean, meaning what was going on when it came out in the 60s. And it was addressing things in a provocative way that people would sit down and pay attention to. Didn't matter what your political affiliation was, because what was going on in Star Trek's shows was out there. It was, to boldly go where no one has gone before, out in the universe. So you could watch these thoughtful, beautifully written shows that were addressing issues of the day, but in a science fiction fantasy context, the same way that Rod Serling did that with The Twilight Zone. So people could watch these provocative shows and be thoughtfully provoked by them, and sit down and watch heroic characters basically be put through their paces, but at the same time, it offered you something to chew on. Star Trek never told you what to think, but it presented you things to think about that related basically back to your own life. I mean, it dealt with emotional issues. It dealt with political issues. It dealt with spiritual issues. It dealt with all kinds of things that we as human beings deal with in our daily lives, but they did it with that was the inside chewy nuggets, but you had a beautiful hard candy shell that tasted like a cherry Jolly Rancher. And that was the sci-fi of it all. And the thing about Star Trek today is it's not about anything. What they've done is they've taken what the iconography of Star Trek and they're making shows that have there's nothing thoughtful about them. You know, like they introduced the Gorn in Strange New Worlds. They didn't do any, like, the thing about Star Trek is it never had villains. It had antagonists. And there were always times when, like when they first introduced the Gorn, when I was a kid, it blew my mind. When you think this giant lizard monster needs to be vanquished because they're evil, they've attacked a Federation outpost. And then Kirk is put on a battle to the death on this asteroid. And when he's about to deliver the killing blow, he says, you know what? Maybe we're wrong. Maybe you thought that your space was being encroached upon and we just didn't know it. And Kirk realizes that it would be wrong for me to kill my opponent because we don't know enough about them for me to take his life. And then, of course, the omnipotent alien Metron shows up and says, wow, that's a quality of mercy. We've scanned your ships, but we didn't know that you had that in you. Maybe we'll spare both of your lives. You can go back to your ships. And we've seen maybe in 1,000 years or 2,000, how many thousand years? It was a trivia question. I'd lose that one. But you're left with a moment of hope that Kirk's humanity in sparing this creature is something that a much more advanced alien race took a look at and said, you know, you humans, there's potential there. So that's an hour-long show. When that show ends, me as a kid, I'm like, wow. And it gave me something to think about because it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Well, if you look at what Strange New Worlds has done to the Gorn, they've made them a generic monster race that is half xenomorph from the Alien franchise and half werewolf or whatever the hell they are. And they've turned them in. They've reduced them. It's so reductive. And the people writing this show, I got to say, they're dumb. They're not smart people. And they're doing what so many fantasy TV writers are today. They all grew up watching Buffy and Angel, and they only can write shows like Buffy and Angel. Star Trek has all become about interpersonal relationships. Everybody's shipping everybody else. Is Spock going to get together with Nurse Chapel, or is he going to keep T'Pring as his bride? It's so monumentally stupid. It has nothing to say. And yet people have embraced it because it looks like Star Trek, and you've got a very handsome man at the front of it. And there's no chain of command on that show. It's like, hey, I'm going to make dinner for only the principal characters. Doesn't matter whether you're a yeoman or whether what you just the principals. All of you come to my cabin, and you know half that. They did the singing show, which Buffy pioneered. You know, once more with feeling. I mean, maybe Cop Rock did it before that, but these shows are written by people that have nothing to say. They haven't read books. They certainly haven't read any science fiction. And they're not even keeping up. Star Trek, I mean, you could make, if somebody asked me, like, I don't know, off the top of my head right now, why not do a show about quantum computing or living in a simulation or any myriad of things? What happens if humanity suddenly is immortal? You know, like you could do a riff on what they did badly in Torchwood Miracle Day, but what would happen then? There's so many stories that you could, they don't know how. And Section 31 felt like, I don't know, an Empire picture Charlie Band would have made in like, it was like Metal Storm, the destruction of Jared Sin that came out in 1983. And it was in 3D, which still wasn't good, but that's what they gave. What they think Section 31 is the most brain dead, stupid shit ever, because nobody went back and watched the episodes where Section 31 was introduced. They think it's like the CIA. I mean, it was introduced in Deep Space Nine. It was one guy who would show up. No one really knew what Section 31 was. Now they have membership cards and a headquarters and a bunch of ships. It's so dumb. And if they made it smarter, look at this. Look at the sci-fi that does well. Battlestar Galactica, The Expanse. People are going back and rewatching Babylon 5, X-Files when it was really smart. People want science fiction, their fantasy even Buffy, the shows that they emulate, was way smarter than any of the drivel these writers are giving us today. And now we're going to get, by the way, we still have 4 Kurtzman seasons of Star Trek coming. We have Strange New Worlds seasons 3 and 4, and we have Starfleet Academy seasons 1 and 2. So there's going to be 4 more years of this insulting, brain dead, stupid, whatever.
Rob, what do you think about Kaczynski's claim here that Alex Kurtzman told him directly that Star Trek's dying?
Well, it's dying because it's no longer relevant. They're not presenting an audience, the traditional audience. Look, whether you're watching a overt fantasy like Star Wars, there's still enough to chew on. I mean, I remember seeing Empire when I was 13 years old, and the life lessons that Yoda was imparting, you couldn't walk out of that theater and not go, do or do not, there is no try. I still think that. I'm an old man with one foot in the grave, and I got a big Yoda right behind me, and I'm still thinking about what he said in a theater in 1980 to me in May, and it resonates. And that's why people love this stuff. And I'll tell you something. That's why kids today are gravitating more toward manga and anime, because those shows are much more thoughtful, much more interesting. They have a lot more to say. They're not afraid of emotion. They're not afraid of portraying real human connection. I mean, the thing about Star Trek Strange New Worlds and modern Star Trek is it feels fake. It's like you're watching a facsimile of what they thought Star Trek was, but then they didn't really want to make that, so they want to make it more like Star Wars. And it's you can tell it is inauthentic.
Yeah, Japan isn't really worried about the DEI and stuff over there. You're not going to see Stacey Abrams up for president of the universe in a Japanese show. I mean,
you can
crazy.
Girls' panties in vending machines.
Well, and the whole thing with
I can attest that's very true. You can.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, they understand that human beings are human beings. Guys like boobs. I mean, the like every other place in the world understands this. But now, I mean, that's another thing. Star Trek, for all of its, Vulcan pawing at Nurse Chapel, and sometimes you'll see Spock take his shirt off. It's like everything else. It's all chaste. You knew that Kirk would get some. You knew. And people wanted to, getting sex was good in Star Trek. And that was another thing. I mean, it was an unspoken, the lust for life was part of Star Trek, and the universe is a lusty place. We've killed all that. We live in the most weirdly sanitized, I'm only going to look at OnlyFans girls through a computer screen. I don't want to actually go out and kiss one.
Yeah.
God. And Star Trek is sexy, man. And we live in a sexless, commodified, can I kiss you or do we have to have a contract world? Ugh, horrible.
Go ahead, Tom. You had something to say.
Tommy.
He left.
Well, Brian, I wanted to ask you this, since next to Rob, you're probably one of the biggest Star Trek nerds on the panel. So what do you think about Alex Kurtzman basically admitting that Star Trek is dying, and it's dying under his watch? And so basically they're saying like, hey, let's make stuff that the Star Trek fan base doesn't care about and, try to pull in new viewers. What do you think about that strategy?
Well, yeah, Star Trek might be dying, but it's not dying because it's irrelevant. It's dying because he has destroyed this. He destroyed the franchise by, it's not just him. It's him and other people who have tried to use Star Trek to push an agenda. They thought that the current fan base would never leave, and that they're like, we're going to go for a new fan base, and we're cool because the current fan base is so rabid that they're going to watch no matter what. And that's the problem a lot of these franchises have. They think they take the fan base that they grew for decades for granted.
Yes, they do.
They assume that we're going to show up and go along and be preached at while they destroy something we love, why they canonically destroy something we love. I can't, I will never forgive them for the episode with Khan, where they, thank you, Rob, where they basically admitted to completely modifying the canon, effectively making a third branch timeline. And then when you brought it up, the crazy brainwashed minority of fans out there that are still following this crap are like, no, it's not their timeline because this person, Akiva, said so. Who cares what Akiva said? Canonically, in Star Trek, in the story, you have made 3 timelines. Oh no, Akiva said it's not. So Akiva said they're just modifying it. Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're creating a 3rd timeline. They think we're so stupid that they can just modify things on the fly because it suits the writing. So, A, it's poor writing, it's lazy writing. B, it's taking us for granted. And while they take us for granted, while they turn around and assume we're going to watch everything that they put out, they're also trying to get a new fan base. And Rob's right, the fan base they're trying to get is a bunch of vapid, unassuming, just, bottom of the barrel fans that aren't going to buy your merch, that aren't going to support your conventions, that are not going to be rabid about your fan base because they're not rabid about your fandom because they're not rabid about anything. They don't care about anything but themselves. They're the most selfish generation. So you're going for the most selfish, entitled generation that exists. When you could have pleased the original fans, which, by the way, I just completely disagree that Star Trek is not as popular as Star Wars. That's insane. Like, maybe Star Wars is more in the pop culture, but Star Trek is at least number 2, the biggest science fiction franchise of all time. So it's so weird to hear like the current head of Star Trek saying that. But regardless, if you actually pleased the existing fan base, us, we would have brought fans into the movement. We would have brought people. My kids, my 13-year-old daughters would have been watching Star Trek. Because I would have been watching Star Trek. Because I started watching Star Trek because my dad watched Star Trek. It's a generational thing. But when you lose the previous generation, guess what? Now you got to work on getting that generation with marketing by putting out vapid non-CW nonsense. And what are we going to get? We're going to get Starfleet Academy is basically going to be CW Star Trek.
Well, it could have been the paper chase in space. It could have been Dead Poets Society in space. It could have been School Ties. It could have been even I Love Alan Parker's Fame. If there are things you would go back. I don't know if the Paper Chase is old. It was a 70s movie that was turned into a show, but it was about law school, Harvard Law, and there was a professor played by John Houseman, Professor Kingsfield, who's one of the greatest characters on TV, and he was a very strict disciplinarian and demanded excellence from his students. Nowadays, the world's changed.
I would like to get Tom Connors Jr.'s opinion on Tom. How do you think Paramount and Alex Kurtzman's Secret Hideout is handling this franchise?
Well, Brian's really kind of off. Star Trek is not very big. In fact, the whole reason they brought JJ in to begin with is because the show had died and it only had 4 million viewers on Enterprise. As far as CBS was concerned, it was a dead franchise. So as far as they see it, JJ brought it back from the dead. And as I've been saying to people for years, Alex Kurtzman is doing them a favor as far as they're concerned. He sees this show. This confirms exactly what I've been telling people. He sees this as a dead franchise, and he is slumming it doing Star Trek for CBS because it is basically a dead... Yes, he's part of the reason it's dead. But at that point, it was already dead. He don't care. He'll never admit to killing it. Not once. So why would he? Because he's doing exactly what they asked him to do. Make the show look like the Star Trek 09 movie. That's all he's been charged with. And he's doing just that. And we don't see Alex Kurtzman they don't see Alex Kurtzman the same way we do, right? They see him as the guy who successfully produced shows like Hawaii Five-0 and all this other stuff like that.
Limitless.
Yeah, Limitless and all these other shows. They don't see him as the guy who fucked up Star Trek. The only time he ever got any flack from Hollywood is when he fucked up Clarice. Because that was supposed to be a big deal for CBS. They could give a shit what he does about Star Trek. They have ruined it, and they don't care because it doesn't sell anything. They literally, we were talking literally like teens of, if not tens of millions of dollars in merchandise now compared to what it used to be.
Yeah,
Well,
but
you
you
know-
would be selling that merchandise if it was still being made correctly. It's older fans, and that
You got to
usually
cater
foster
to that base.
that foster in the next base that are no longer supporting it. Like,
You know,
how many Discovery things were selling prior to like a TNG merch or a TOS
Yeah.
merch? Nothing.
You know, Brian, back when I worked at Paramount, you know, Star Trek was known as the Golden Goose, right? It was a small but hardcore fan base, and as long as they were able to make a movie for like $30 million, they would rake in the dough, you know.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until they started getting into the JJ era where they were spending $100+ million on these Star Trek movies, where they're like, why aren't we getting a return on our investment? So like they kind of fail. They've always failed to understand the fan base. But I want to throw this to Odin real quick, because Odin, when Section 31 came out, it was panned by critics and fans alike. It racked up only 170 million minutes viewed. And this was I think it was a 2-hour, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, 2-hour mini movie, essentially.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. So, you
And
know,
it sets up a sequel, which we all know is never going to happen.
Yeah, and we've seen stuff where it's like The Acolyte boasted that it got something like 3 billion minutes viewed for its debut, episode, and that ended up getting canceled. And here you have this moderately budgeted with like Michelle Yeoh, who's a Academy Award winner, and it's only getting 170 million views and just getting panned by critics alike. Do you think that, like, what does it have to take to tell Alex Kurtzman that his strategy of trying to get new viewers in is failing?
At this point, I just don't know. You know, I'm not as big of a Trekkie as many others on this panel or in the audience. You know, I always mention this. It's a broken record, but my knowledge of Star Trek really is DS9. I've seen all of it, and I loved it. I've obviously seen a handful of the original episodes, a handful of Next Gen, and my plan over the summer is to start to go through all of those as well. And I think that really it comes down to ego. And sadly, when it comes to people, and in Hollywood, this is how it's always been, people let their egos get in the way. And so they are unwilling to see the truth. They're unwilling to see the reality that's very clear for them to see right in front of them. Like, I'm looking back at some of the the box office numbers because someone mentioned the movies, and what I found interesting is that actually on paper, none of the films, even the originals, were like huge hits as far as net profits at the theater. I mean, afterwards we could obviously say, okay, there's obviously a lot of other revenue streams, people buying the VHS, DVD, like all that stuff, right? I'm imagining like they made tons on everything connected to the movie, right? All of the merchandising, right? Obviously that is where the money was likely made in a huge degree for it. But it got worse with the newer films because they cost, as Tom had mentioned, right? They increased the price so much, they increased their budget so much that they were still dealing with that same size audience. You had some normies starting to maybe be like, oh, let's see what this is about. And then when they dove into the world, many of them were like, I'm not really that interested. And so by the last film, Star Trek Beyond, that film lost over $100 million at the box office. And so these are, I think, just interesting, data points to point out that it's clear to me that someone like this who's in charge of a franchise, it's just like what we say in Star Wars. It's just like what we're seeing with, even to some degree, the MCU. These people in many ways not only have their egos, but also it seems have some activist bent to them, right? They want these films and these franchises to start to, more directly mention and impact culture in a way that previously had not been the case, right? Whereas before, someone who was a really talented writer could incorporate their life experience, and it could include things like more marginalized groups of people or things like that. DS9 had episodes like that, where like there was one episode where they kind of like went back in time and they were going through what it was like to be like a black man during a time when it was actually racist on Earth. And it's like, okay, that's
Far Beyond
actually,
the Stars.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's actually an interesting concept, and they're playing it pretty well. Whereas in today's world, it's just like hitting you in the face with it every single episode, every single time. So it's not just like a one-off episode where they go into an intriguing direction. Instead, it's just so overt with the messaging. And so I don't know what's going to take at this point. Someone firing him probably would be the only thing. And if no one can fire him, then I always wonder what's going on with a lot of these stockholders, because I don't see how they don't have as much power as I feel like they should, especially when these companies are just, wasting money and devaluing their stock.
I want to point something out, though, about what you're saying about box office.
Yeah.
When they made like Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, they brought in their television division to make it. Harv Bennett came in from their TV department, and they made that movie for $11 million. and it made over 70 million at the time, and that's a hugely profitable film for 1982.
Yep.
And if you look at the money, so if you go by the conventional wisdom that a movie costs 3 or 4 times, it's broken even when it's made 3 or 4 times its budget. So you look at so you get to $44 million, it's broken even, and then up to 70 million, cut that in half because that's what the studio gets. You're still looking at a pretty nice chunk of change. You're getting back, let's say you get back $15 million on an $11 million spend. That's over 100% profit. And any investor will tell you that's really good money. And so the Star Trek movies always did that kind of, Star Trek 5 didn't, but did that kind of business. And it used to be that Star Trek was made for basically a domestic audience. Germans liked it. The UK liked it. Whereas now the economics of movie making is completely different. And so Star Trek was always profitable for the amount of money, very profitable for the amount of money they were spending.
And that's box office. What about afterwards? DVD, Blu-ray.
Well, the video cassettes.
That's what I'm saying. That's
huge.
probably
In
where they
fact,
made most of their money.
Star
Trek
Trek 2
was
was
the
one of the
first-
first sell-through tapes. Yeah,
That and Office
Yeah.
and the Gentleman, $39.95, and it sold
but
millions.
it's funny, the things you just said about the old films compared to the new ones, and how much they make and how much they cost. Emma Watts pointed that out at the company before she left. She said these movies are basically making the same amount of money they were back in the day, but they're costing 2, 3, 4 times as much to make.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And so they were just not profitable anymore. And you're right. And you even got to that point with Star Trek 5 and 6 where the budget had gotten a little high and the return wasn't coming back anymore. Kind of like most sequels, when you get to that point, it's like, well, is it worth spending any more money? Because these movies aren't getting any cheaper to make compared to how much they're making at the box office then.
Gavin Blackburn in the chat says, no, Rob, if a movie costs $100 million and makes $101 million, it's in profit. Look, we're talking about the negative cost to make a movie, but the thing is, you have to market a movie. You also have studio overhead. You have
he's taking the piss out of you, Rob.
I think he's trying to. I think he's trying to joke.
He knows the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we know Gavin.
I just want to say really quick, talking about Wrath of Khan reminded me that it's time for my annual viewing of Wrath of Khan. I watch it at least once a year. It's my favorite Star Trek movie. It's probably one of my top 5 movies of all time. And I always watch it in March. And typically because of today, March 22nd, which is William Shatner's 95th birthday. So I wanted 94th birthday. I want to shout out William Shatner, say happy birthday from us here at Salty Nerd.
That guy is so based. I love him so much.
It's crazy. Yeah, unblock Tom, please.
Oh, I was blocked on social media, and I made a movie.
I didn't
with
do
him.
nothing. Yeah, you made a movie with him.
He doesn't know that I'm blocked.
He's probably trying to extort you. You can buy your way out of a William Shatner block. So
that's what he did to Doomcock.
I love that guy so much.
But anyway, just me and my friends, we used to get together every March and we would celebrate. We would have a Trek birthday party for Nimoy and Shatner, and we'd have
4 days apart.
My wife would make us a Andorian green cake with their faces really grossly painted on there and everything. It was super fun, man. We used to have. I miss all my nerd friends from back in the day. But this is it's a big day.
You got new nerd fans now.
We got new nerds. I got new nerds now. But we don't do a Star Trek birthday party for Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner because their birthday, Rob, was they were like 2 weeks apart, right, or something.
No,
like
4
that.
days.
Oh, was that close? Yeah.
It was that close, and they were the same age.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, guys, so real quick, I want to tell everyone who's dropped super chats. We only have Rob for an hour today, so I want to move on to the next story while we still got him. But we will get to your super chats after the end of the next segment. Speaking of which, the next segment is about, I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but the Daily Wire co-CEO, Jeremy Boering, has stepped down officially as the co-head of the company. Now, it's important to note that he's still part owner of the company, and he's supposedly staying on board as in an advisory role. But Axios broke this story the other day where basically he has come out publicly and said that he's going to be stepping down from all of his co-CEO duties. And he's just going to be focusing on hosting his behind-the-scenes show with the Daily Wire and finishing up the Pendragon Cycle, which is the TV show that he's directing, and also like being an advisor, creative advisor to the Daily Wire. And instantly, once this news broke, there was all types of conspiracy theories, or I should just say theories at this point, about why he decided to step down. And there was a gentleman by the name of Ian Carroll. I don't know if you guys have heard about this guy. He was recently on Joe Rogan. And Ian Carroll kind of made this video talking about inside sources telling him that Jeremy Boering has basically run the company into the ground, that they're kind of like struggling financially now. They're trying to sell it off. They tried to sell it off to Tim Pool in like an all stock deal or something like that. Now I don't know if
they
you
were
know
trying
much.
to buy Tim Pool. That was
No, they were trying to sell it to Tim Pool.
No, he retracted
according to this video, and I think he only retracted it because on the IRL show, Tim Pool basically came out and said, this is complete BS. It's complete lies. He got it totally wrong.
Yeah, so what he said was they were trying to buy Tim Pool by offering him Daily Wire stock.
Well, in this video, he said that they were trying to sell it off to Tim Pool. But basically, I don't know if you guys know much about Ian Carroll, but he is a very anti-Israel type of news commentator. He doesn't seem to like, Jewish people all that much. And basically, he's coming out and very happily spreading rumors, because every other sentence in this video was allegedly about the reason why Jeremy Boring's stepping down. And then you had Brett Cooper, who dropped a tweet of Jimmy Fallon kind of like smiling slyly at this announcement. And that kind of like fanned the flames of like, so it was Jeremy Boering that she had like a falling out with and all this other stuff. Now, the reason that this is important is because Daily Wire is the biggest independent conservative news network out there. They've got lots of different shows. They make tons of money. I think that they say that they pull in $200 million in profit a year. They have $1 billion valuation. And for a couple of guys who just do like YouTube videos, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are asking about the ramifications of Jeremy Boering stepping down, because he also runs Jeremy's Razors and like a couple other kind of like ancillary like side businesses that are kind of entwined with
side hustles,
Daily Wire, side hustles.
Pendragon.
Exactly. Yeah, well, we're going to get into Pendragon. So like the big thing seems to be that the reason that all these financial trouble rumors are spreading is because Jeremy Boering was kind of at the forefront of pushing Daily Wire into being like a full-blown Hollywood competitor. It started off with them purchasing movies that they would then release under the Daily Wire banner. They started up their own children's programming network with Bernthal, and now they're trying to get into like the Netflix kind of original series game with the Pendragon cycle, which is basically their version of Game of Thrones, but set in Arthurian legend. And it's been a passion project of Jeremy Boring's. He wrote it, directed it, produced it, all this other stuff. There seems to be some confusion about whether or not there's Snow White movies still happening. But it seems that basically Jeremy got them into this content production, Hollywood arms race type thing that their core business can't really sustain. And that seems to be why he's like pulling back. Other people are just saying like, hey, like he's kind of sick of all like the BS that goes along with the day-to-day business stuff. And he just wants to focus on creative stuff like, making more movies, making more TV shows, stuff like that. So Rob, I want to throw this to you. What's your take on this news that Jeremy Boering has stepped down from Daily Wire?
Well, I've always, I'm not their target audience, but I've always thought that they, had interesting content. I mean, I watch Ben Shapiro. He's obviously a smart guy. And I found it really interesting. I did a show I was telling you on my own podcast where when they became a movie distributor, they picked up Run, Hide, Fight as their first movie. And they had a really interesting model. And I was interested in seeing what the Daily Wire did from a distribution standpoint for independent cinema. And I thought for a while there, they did a great job. The problem is, if you're not like, I'm sure Jeremy Boering, I'm surely you nailed it. When you try and make a TV show and you're not a TV show company and you haven't worked in that, the costs, they rise very, very quickly. And that's the reason everybody thinks, they can make movies. But when you're trying to do, like, they didn't start small. They just, we're going to do our Game of Thrones with the Arthurian legends. Oh, okay. That's just dive right in. The Moonies tried to do that with a movie called Inchon, and it didn't work out for them very well. But I do think, look, I'm a big proponent of different voices. And I think the Daily Wire, look, there's a lot of personalities on the Daily Wire that I'm not, like Matt Walsh, I'm not a big fan of, even though I appreciate the movies that he's made because he's gone out and done them. But I think that having a conservative home for people is important. Just like I think I think that you might not like those people, but I do appreciate their level of intellect, and I might disagree with them, but I think that they do provide compelling content that even if you're not on their side of the fence, to listen to it and consider it, and I think that that's something that the Daily Wire offers, and I would like to see it continue. But with him leaving, I'm sure, look, it either comes down to it's either about money or some kind of impropriety or both. And I'm sure that, look, rather than have a scandal happen, like you said, it's a $1 billion valuation is nothing to sneeze at. And having him step down and keeping the channel free of scandal or whatever is probably something that was prudent to do. And he's still, he hasn't cut ties. I don't know what happened with Brett Cooper. I don't know why you would want to lose your fresh-faced girl in her early 20s that's a conservative. I mean, and take your feelings out of it, but she's somebody that they should have done everything they could to hold on to. Candace Owens has become a complete crackpot, but she's somebody that they should have kept. And I think whatever happened there was a mistake because, like,
Pride happened, Rob.
What's that?
Pride. It was
Yeah.
Jeremy Boering's pride. She wanted more money, and he didn't like the fact that talent was asking for anything.
Well, there you go. I mean, but I do think, look, we need to learn how to listen to all voices in America. And I do believe that not all ideologies are good ideologies, but we have forgotten how to talk to one another. And I think having various outlets, and people should have a healthy, as Chris Gore says, media diet. And I mean, that's why I watch a great variety of programming on YouTube, because I like to hear different voices. I'm curious to hear what people think and why they think it. And I think the people on that channel do a pretty good job. Now, you might hate their guts, but at least they have the strength and courage of their convictions, such as they may be. So I think I would not like to see the Daily Wire go away and be destabilized.
I agree.
Well, Brian, famously, Steven Crowder conned the term big con, or AKA big conservatism. And a big part of that was when he was in negotiations, with Jeremy Boering, because Daily Wire wanted to bring his show into their network. And Steven Crowder very publicly aired all of his grievances against this contract that Jeremy had, written up for him. And it seemed like a personal betrayal. And, Jeremy Boering came out publicly and kind of went through the contract and explained the reasoning behind all the different clauses. But that was kind of like the first time that, like, a big name on the right side of the spectrum kind of called Jeremy Boering out. And he's been embroiled in these controversies with talent, like you mentioned, with Brett Cooper and stuff like that. So what's your take? Why do you think Jeremy Boering stepped down as co-CEO?
I think it was prudent to do so. He still owns, part of the business, and people are turning on him, and rightfully so. Someone in the comments said, so Steven Crowder was right. Yeah, I mean, at least partially. They don't respect their talent. Jeremy Boering specifically has this mentality that he literally calls himself lowercase God King. At first it was a joke, but he is an egomaniac, dude. And for 25 years, what did that guy say? He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to make movies. So this guy takes a profitable business that essentially is people sitting in front of webcams talking about politics and their opinions. And he makes it so, and he's such a narcissist, he makes it all about his ambitions. And he discounts everything the people that built the company did for him. No one is a fan of Jeremy Boering. People aren't a fan of Brett Cooper, of Matt Walsh, which I'm not a huge fan. I don't like Matt Walsh. I think he's sort of a dickhead. But I do. Yeah, he's sort of a dickhead. But I like his movies. I like his movies. I don't like Matt Walsh, but I like his movies. But additionally, Even Ben Shapiro, we love him or hate him, right? However you feel about the guy, he's the reason people watch that. Candace Owens, before she was let go. So he has never realized that his stock, like what is valuable in his company, is not the name Daily Wire or Jeremy Boering. No one gives a crap about Jeremy Boering. I did that for you, Odin. No one cares about Jeremy Boering. They care about the rest of the talent that the Daily Wire has contracts with. But Jeremy Boering doesn't take that talent seriously. He doesn't see that the entire brand is dependent on that talent. So the second someone goes, I need more money, or I need more time, or I need more control over my show, or my social media accounts, or whatever, like Brett Cooper, he goes, who are you, you disgusting child? Move along. I will replace you with your producer. And now their show goes from 500,000 views on average to 15,000 views on average. That's insane. And it's not like it happened once with Brett Cooper. Like this is a pattern for Jeremy Boering. And Steven Crowder only brought that, I think he brought that to light. Like he showed people who Jeremy Boering was. They not only lowballed him, but they disrespected him. They disrespected someone who should have been a peer. They should have been not a lower than, not some employee that you can hire. And if you did the math on what it would cost for Steven to produce that content annually, like he's not making remotely enough money for his time. But so they lowballed him, they disrespected him. And yeah, should Steven have brought out those tapes and showed it publicly? Maybe not. But dude, Jeremy Boering's response was so, I can't believe you would do this to me, Steven. He's such a fake, disingenuous asshole. I'm glad he stepped down, but let's not forget that fake, disingenuous asshole still owns Daily Wire. So you're supporting Daily Wire, you're supporting Jeremy Boering. And let's be real, the step down is just a maneuver. It's a maneuver to take a little bit of heat off Daily Wire so he can keep running shit in the background like Pendragon.
Tom Connors Jr., what's your take on why Jeremy Boering stepped down? And this is relevant because Daily Wire, they're a big YouTube company. They're a big media company. So, it's almost like something that other YouTubers can aspire to achieve because they were kind of like homegrown type stuff. So what impact do you think this has on their business?
Well, I mean, I guess at one point you become mainstream, and I guess in some ways Daily Wire has with the movies that they've been putting out, with a couple of them anyway. Now the other ventures in there, like you pointed out, have not been working out for them, which is sad because this is, it was something that was set up for, voices that weren't being heard. But this was also at a time when the media was so left leaning, which it still is, don't get me wrong. But I mean, it felt like you had 20 outlets for left media and nothing for right-wing media, right? Like you were just bombarded with it. So, I mean, I don't know if it's so much more the money that was wasted and lost and spent in the relationships that you guys were just speaking of. I know very little about this situation. I know very little about the Daily Wire to really comment on it. And even Sadie's barking because she knows I don't know much about it. So
Don't talk about Steven!
But no, I mean, I guess if anything, you just kind of get ahead of yourself. Money gets in the way. The Daily Wire probably had a boost there for a while, like I said, and then it fell off. And it sounds like Jeremy got, let his head get too big and spent too much money. I even saw this Snow White thing. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this just makes no sense.
That never got made.
If it was a troll,
No.
it made sense. Not to actually make the movie, but to come out with like trailer like they're going to, just as a troll.
Exactly.
That makes complete sense.
As a little
troll.
skit. Same thing with that one movie they did, Lady Ballers, where it's like, this might work as a skit, but I don't know as a whole movie. And you're kind of going against what the whole idea of what this should be, instead of it being, all about right-wing entertainment. It should just be like family and neutral entertainment, because wasn't that what this was supposed to be in the beginning?
Yeah, and some of the stuff they bought was very family friendly. Like my church showed one of their movies, their superhero movie. I forgot what it's called. It's not even a religious movie. It's just family friendly. So that was the way to go. You're completely right.
Oh, the Hyperion?
Yeah, right. The Hyperion.
Yeah, and that brings me to you, Odin, because I want to ask you. So, Daily Wire's initial foray into, I guess, scripted narratives was in direct response to how woke Disney was going, right? And so they wanted to offer like an alternative to Hollywood, and they start off with the Miramax model of basically purchasing independent movies and then releasing them on their Daily Wire Plus subscription service. And they kind of made headway with Gina Carano after she got fired from The Mandalorian, and they kind of picked her up and made a movie with her. And then they started getting into original productions. I believe Snow White was going to be a fully produced movie, but then once Disney kind of course corrected, I think that they might have dropped that entirely, especially now that Brett Cooper is no longer with the company. But the Pendragon cycle is basically their first big original series, and Jeremy Boering is neck deep into that. Like, that's been his baby for like 25 years, essentially, because it's been a passion project of his. But it does seem like their strategy of being an alternative Hollywood has been fumbled, and I think a lot of that might be because of Jeremy's kind of like vision for what they want to be. So I want to get your take on that. Do you think that the Daily Wire should continue trying to be this alternative Hollywood, or is this just Jeremy's, ego forcing this company to spend a lot of money to have him fulfill his dream of being an actor, writer, director, auteur?
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where they probably could still go in that direction, but they need someone new in the creative space, because it's clear that Jeremy Boering isn't it. I'm wondering if that might actually be the reason why. I think he was probably pressured based just on just from the outside. I have no inside knowledge of this, so I could be completely wrong on this, but my instinct tells me that he was likely pressured because they were looking at the financials saying, look, we're making a lot of money, right? We have very successful YouTube channels. We have a very successful platform, but you're just going off spending, right? I think that they even said early on they were going to commit to $100 million or so of content. Yeah, for BentKey, for BentKey, right? And that was buying content to put on the platform, creating their own original content as well. And I would be surprised if a huge portion of that, or additionally more money, was being put forward more specifically the Pendragon cycle, because that is a passion project of his. So I would not be surprised if he has just been ballooning that budget, has just been spending a ton of money on it. And if we're honest, BentKey I don't think has really been all that successful. Most people who have a subscription to the Daily Wire are likely not actually using BentKey. They're likely just using the main platform or other things, right? It's good to have those alternatives.
I don't even know what BentKey is.
Yeah, BentKey is their...
Well, Brian,
BentKey is their family channel, essentially.
That's so weird. I have no idea what that is. Because they also spent about $15 million on legal stuff during the COVID restrictions. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, that was good.
That was money well spent, because they got a win, and it was also like a big move that a lot of people, especially more of a conservative side of person, could actually be like, oh, I fully support this and I fully endorse what y'all are doing.
But that's not making them any money. That was pure.
Where did they come up with the term BentKey?
So BentKey,
it sounds like an app for a lockpick service.
Well, very appropriate for this conversation, because it actually came from Jeremy Boering. It's I think referring to either his theater troupe or something from his childhood when he was growing up.
It was his childhood theater troupe.
When I think of the term BentKey, I think of children's programming.
Yeah, he literally
makes total sense.
Has a bent key around his neck. Like I think that he's had that forever, and then once they launched it, it's now like a thing that you notice even more so. Yeah. It's just very clear that his ego, I think, has just gotten to the best of him, and so it would surprise me if he got pressured out because he was just wasting a ton of money. So obviously he still has influence, he still has some creative control in some regards, but I think that him specifically stepping down as CEO means he has, I guess, less ability to greenlight projects, and I think that's probably what they were like, yeah, we just can't have you doing this anymore, because he lets his ego, he lets his emotion drive his decision making and not actual business. And I think that it's likely like they were looking at the sheet saying, look, we're still making money, but you're cutting into our profits by quite a bit. We can't really expand anymore. We can't really do anything else. And BentKey has not proven to be successful, I think, in any way. Again, they've picked up some good movies, but in the end, it's not nearly enough to become an actual alternative to Hollywood, especially with the direction that they're going in, with all the money likely, or a huge portion of the money going to Pendragon cycle, which I don't think is, I mean, obviously I have to see it first before I make a judgment, but I have a lot of doubts about it.
I think the problem that they have over there at Daily Wire is that there's too many people like me out here where I'm going, I think I'm going to go watch a new movie or entertainment show today. I want something new. The first thing that pops in my head is not the Daily Wire to go look for new content. In fact, it never even crosses my brain because,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like, I don't know. It's just, they should just stay in their lane.
Well, that's what I was
it's-
saying. Is like their only successes have been is What Is a Woman and the other
Am I
one was
Racist?
Am I Racist? And those because they were cheap to make,
Yeah.
and they made a buttload of money, and they're probably the only thing keeping the company afloat right now. To be
Although
honest with
Am
you.
I Racist was like double the budget of Am I a Woman? What is it? Woman
Yeah, but
or
it
something?
still made so
know,
it made
but
like
think about
2
how
or 3 times
successful-
as much.
Exactly.
And I haven't watched either of those because I think Matt Walsh is a dick. Okay,
Yeah,
I
he
just
is a
can't
dick.
stand the.
And he
dude.
knows that
I-
too. Like he
Yeah.
leans into that quite a
It's
bit.
like,
such a
you
dick.
guys shouldn't play video games because they're going to make you go murder somebody.
Oh
It's
my
like,
God.
okay,
Shut
Tipper
up,
Gore,
Matt.
Shut the fuck up. You know,
God.
it's just like it's
God, what an
just
idiot.
stupid shit like that. Just
By
drives
the
me
way,
crazy.
an industry friend of mine is watching this show and just sent me something interesting. That Jeremy Boering served as the executive director of the Friends of Abe, a low-profile networking organization for Hollywood conservatives founded by Gary Sinise. Of course, Gary Sinise does great work for veterans.
He does.
Boring refused to give the Internal Revenue Service access to the section of the organization's website that would identify its members, saying such access was not required by federal law. And then he ended up running that into the ground, the Friends of Abe. So he has, I guess, a history of this kind of thing. But you know, what I find interesting about on a larger level, user-generated content on YouTube, like what we're doing right now, has totally eclipsed all of legacy media. It is made irrelevant.
big time.
They still haven't quite grasped. I still have people asking me, they think I'm nuts. Next month, it will be my 10th year on YouTube from when John Schnepp first said, hey, come be on AMC Heroes.
Holy moly.
So it's like I've watched a decade. At first, I wasn't paying much attention. I would just show up. I didn't even realize I was on a YouTube show practically. I just would go to the studio, sit down and talk comic book movies, and I would leave. I wasn't even watching much YouTube. But what's happened is people like the Daily Wire, you know, they started out being user-generated content, a place where conservatives could go. And then everybody wants to expand and become a giant media company because the money's rolling in. But they don't have the skill set and they don't have the people to build the kind of infrastructure needed to make, say, a Game of Thrones. But everybody thinks they can do it. And so they do these things that become folly. I mean, I think the only person that's really been able to do it effectively is Mr. Beast. And that's because he spent a long time. I mean, it took him a long time, and he developed an infrastructure of people that knew how to make things. But I think that's what's happening with a lot of these companies is they want to. There's all these delusions of grandeur that everybody has. Both Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring wanted to make movies and TV shows. That's where they came from. And then they were given a platform on YouTube to do these kinds of things. But without being surrounded by people who really know production, you always wind up having these collapses. We see them happen over and over and over again.
Yeah, and the thing is that someone like Mr. Beast, he doesn't care about profit. So like he'll just like spend whatever it takes to like, you know, make the content. But when it comes to like what Daily Wire's mission was, I was always critical of them because I was like, why aren't you making like the $3 to $10 million like low budget 80s style action movies that's all masculine energy, like, you know, it's just buff dudes blowing shit up with hot chicks on their arms and stuff like that. Like fill that void that Hollywood was refusing to fill at the time.
Yeah.
You know, counter programming type stuff. Like that would have been huge if they had done that. But instead they were just kind of like doing what Hollywood was doing, but like in a lighter style, right? So it's like, okay, we still have female main character action heroes who can destroy a 300-pound man, you know, but it's on the conservative streaming service as opposed to like, you know, something like Disney Plus. So I was always kind of critical about that. But you know what I'm not critical about, guys, is super chats. But before we get to super chats, I want to thank Robert Meyer Burnett for being here today. I wish you could stay longer, but you have a big Hollywood interview to do, so we don't want to keep you. Is there anything you'd like to say in terms of final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
You can find me on YouTube at the Burnett Work. It's been hard for me the last week. I've been finishing my audio drama, True Noir, which you can get at truenoir.co. and there's some interesting news on that front coming soon. But yeah, find me over there on the Burnette Work. And tomorrow we have Let's Get Physical Media. I'm doing a Robservations today. I am going to, I will be going to Portland. I work with, I do a thing I've been doing for 8 years called Crisis Medicine Tactical Casualty Care, where I'm working with a former Green Beret and current ER doctor to create. We've done a whole series about providing pre-hospital care in active violent events, and this is the 8th year I've been shooting stuff for it. So I work with special operators and ex-military and current SWAT members. It's really fun. You can find that at Crisis Medicine online. And then CinemaCon is the week after. Coming to Vegas, Matthew.
Superman trailer.
I know. Or maybe they'll show the movie. Who knows?
Oh, I'd be so mad if they did.
I think they're. Maybe.
No, shut up. Don't
Wow.
tell me that.
You never know.
We got to talk later on about that documentary I'm making too. Superman.
Yeah,
related.
yeah. You know,
Superman
I
Returns.
watched your Voyager documentary the other day.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, and I started your Enterprise documentary, but I had to go. Those are really good.
Thanks, bro. I'm doing one on Superman Returns. I know you did the behind the scenes, so
Dude, I got 1,500 hours of footage that no one's ever seen.
please communicate with me on this. Oh my
You should
God,
talk-
bro.
You should talk to Brian Singer.
I don't know Brian. I know you.
talk-
I don't know Brian
He'll
Singer.
talk to you.
Hey, just talk to Brian Singer. He'll talk.
If you're
Yeah,
doing
Brian
All right,
Singer's
I'll
not
message
doing
him, see what
anything.
happens.
Yeah.
he'll definitely talk to you about Superman Returns. Yes.
All right.
All right. Well, listen, it was great. Thank you for having me, but I'm sorry I have to go out early. I'm interviewing the costume designer of Anora. So that'll be fun.
So
All right,
Mike,
great.
you
Yeah,
wants
like
a super chat, Red.
Have fun.
So, all right, guys. Thanks for having me. And it's always a
Rob.
pleasure. All right.
See you, Rob.
See you guys later.
Hi, Rob.
God
Good
bless.
seeing you.
That guy's awesome.
All right, guys, we got a ton of super chats to get through. So
Yeah.
first of all, Mexican Iron Man for $9.99. Shameless plug. Robert Meyer Burnett produces a stunning and astounding achievement, one of the best entertainment experiences, period. You don't have to be a fan of the noir genre. This is pure greatness. So big shout out for R&B's production on noir stuff. Then we got Major Chai Chai for $2. Thanks for the shout out, Rob. Major Chai Chai, thank you. And we got Art to the Icky for $4.99. It's true, I do like boobs.
Boobs.
And wieners.
Boobs. And then, guys, we got
8008.
our top contributor, Scotty Dub, for $49.99.
Scotty
Again,
Dub!
Very nice.
$50. Viva the Salty Nerds, especially Mr. Kadish and superb guests like RMB, another nice Jewish boy like yours truly. Always pleases my heart to see Dutch, Brian, Tom, and the inimitable All-Father in the mix. Happy Saturday to you and all the chat. Happy Saturday to you, Scotty Dub. Haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to see you pop up in here.
Hey, Dub.
Then we got Commander Ed Straker of Shadow, who has just become a YouTube member. Welcome to the
Nice.
membership, Commander Ed Straker. of
Welcome,
Shadow.
sir.
Yes. And I believe that brings us up to 7. Yeah, 7 Salty Nerd podcast memberships. So only got 3 more to go. Then we got Jay Frazier 360 for £5. Hail Salty Nerds! RMB, is there any new film shows that we should be watching? Also, I recommend The Renaissance Nerd and Mr. Grizzy as future guests. Oh, okay. I'll keep those in mind, Jay Frazier. Sorry that RMB had to bounce before we got to your super chat, but I would recommend Severance on Apple TV. I've been loving that show. And also From on MGM Plus. Those have been 2 of my favorites. Brian, do you have any recommendations?
Mythic Quest, always good.
That's what I was
Always
gonna say.
good. Mythic Quest is great. Oh my God, love it so much.
Love Mythic Quest.
Invincible on Prime. It's pretty good if you like animation. Reacher season 3 is actually as good as season 1, in my opinion.
Silo.
Silo's really good.
Silo's
really
great.
good. Yeah. Oh, Paradise.
Oh, yeah. Paradise was excellent.
Jesus,
Love that
Yo,
show.
so good. Gotta watch
Yeah.
that. It looks boring at first, but man, just get through the first episode, and at the end, you're like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah, there's a big reveal at the end of the first episode that
mind-blowing
totally
stuff.
recontextualizes the
It's-
entire series.
It's crazy
crazy.
how much of that stuff that we just said were all on Apple TV, right? So
No, some of that's on.
I know
Hulu
some
and
of it,
Amazon,
yeah, but Apple TV's kills it.
Apple
They do a
TV
lot
has
of
some good stuff. Yeah. Peacock,
Absolutely.
dude. Listen, I've been watching this reality show called Deal or No Deal Island with Joe I can't say his last. Manganiello, whatever. Dude, it's really. I know it's dirty entertainment, but man, do I love it. It's like the Jack in a Box of entertainment. At 3 a.m, when you may or may not be stoned or at least tired, nothing's better than that good greasy burger. Dude, Deal or No Deal Island is basically Jack in a Box of entertainment, and it's
How do you
really
guys
fun.
find time to watch all this shit?
I work
sleep.
like 18 hours a day, so I gotta watch something.
Well,
I can't
uh,
watch something
1.5
and work
speed
at the same time
sometimes.
usually. I just can't.
I'd recommend Superman, by the way, the documentary. It was excellent. I finally got to see it.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
to Jay,
The Christopher Reeves documentary, yeah.
Uh-huh.
we will look into Renaissance Nerd and Mr. Grizzy and see if we can get them on the show at some point. Mark's 47 for $5. RMB, any rumors of legacy Batman era writers producers being contracted by Skydance to oust Kurtzman and write the ship in the contract? Tom, do you know anything about that?
I haven't heard anything recently.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, well, Mark, sorry that RMB had to bounce before we could get to your super chat. My apologies. R2D Bot got 1 gifted Salty Nerd Podcast membership, so we're up to 8. Always good. And then TGV Monster gifted 1 Salty Nerd Podcast membership, so we're at 9. So we just need one more. Just need one more to hit our goal. And then, of course, our favorite Australian, Hemorrhoid Hurts, Australian $2. Good morning, friends in chat. 4 a.m. and ferociously hot. So I guess it's a little hot down under. And of course, friend of the show, John Yulden for £4.99. Have a great show and weekend, everyone. Like and subscribe to the show and Salty Nerd Gaming. Thank you very much.
Hey, we're doing the Stargate watch along tomorrow at 2:00 on his channel. We're doing episode 2.
You want to give a little bit of a overview on that, Brian?
Yeah. Basically, one of his friends has never seen Stargate, and we made a joke on one of his live stream, and we go, well, let's just watch Stargate every episode for every week, and and we'll stream it. We'll do a watch along. We'll watch the entire episode. We're watching it in Discord, so you can come in our Discord and watch it. It's in the Popcast Discord. So you watch it with us. We talk throughout the show. So if you don't like that, mute us, whatever. And then we give a little review. Problem is, it's going to take like 4 years at this rate
Yeah.
just to get to Atlantis. But we're doing it every Sunday at 2:00 on his channel. Just hit it. Follow us on X to find it.
There you go. And of course, we've hit our goal with TGV Monster for gifting 1 Salty Nerd Podcast membership.
Awesome.
And not to be outdone, the wonderful Major Chai Chai also gifted 1 Salty Nerd.
There it is.
We're now at 11, everyone. 11. And then Mexican Iron Man, member for 25 months, Livestream 101. If there are super chats related to a VIP guest, then read those super chats before the VIP guest leaves. Hashtag brown chat lives matter.
Yeah,
Well,
Mr.
Mike.
Kadish.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Mike, you're more than welcome to come on and produce this show.
Yeah, come on, Mike. Come produce the show.
I would love that. Unfortunately, I don't get a chance to read all the super chats as they come in. Otherwise, I would have tried to hit those. But that is great advice
I tried
from
to
the
tell
man
you.
who is not a YouTuber. So I said I'd give a thumbs up to the people that got us to 10. So thumbs up TGV Monster and a bonus thumbs up for Major Chai Chai. Really appreciate you guys. All right. What people aren't appreciating, though, guys, is the movie Snow White, the live action remake. And apparently it's not doing too well. And since we have a box office since we have a box office expert with the All Father himself on the panel, I wanted to get your take. So basically, Odin, Variety is reporting that Snow White has made $3.5 million in previews. And they also, all the industry trades basically said that, oh, everyone was wrong about this movie. It's so good. Rachel Zegler is spectacular, blah, blah, blah. And that they could be looking at a $100 million worldwide box office gross at the end of this weekend. So what's the truth behind these box office numbers, Odin, if you want to fill us in?
Oh, I mean, it very well could make $100 million worldwide. However, that's a terrible number. Like the fact that they're trying to run with that as being somehow a big win for the movie is a bit egregious, especially since, hey, they weren't willing to admit the truth when it came to the budget for Captain America Brave New World, but they are willing to say, yeah, the reported budget on this movie is around $270 million. And just to give you a bit of context, right, we expect it to likely have maybe even cost a little bit more. And we're going to find out the full cost of this as time goes on, because they filmed it in the UK to take advantage of those tax credits. And so eventually those numbers do come out. We actually got early numbers that were reported by Caroline Reed over at Forbes. And so that's how we know it's cost about as much as it has already. So $100 million is on the table for the entire worldwide opening weekend. But to hopefully give a little bit of context on that, you know, Mufasa, The Lion King, opened $125 million globally in its opening weekend. So this would be underneath that. Now, Mufasa did leg out to get to upwards of $700 million, but that was also barely making a bit of a profit because of, again, the massive budget that movie had going for it. Wicked opened to 162 million. Venom 3 opened to 175 globally. Even Joker 2 opened to 121 million globally. Alien Romulus, $108 million globally. So they can try to throw out $100 million and act like that's somehow supposed to be impressive. But if you just compare that to some other films, and a few of them actually were massive flops, with the kind of budget that this movie has, yeah, this is not good news for them really at all. And they're also kind of, you know, leaving a bit of context out, because Deadline has a report right now where they're like, it's right now tracking to have the same opening weekend as Dumbo. The issue is that Dumbo is also one of the biggest failures when it comes to the live action adaptations that they have ever done. That film was a box office loser, only made 2.1 times its budget back.
It's also a decade old too, right?
Yes. And so it's kind of crazy. Actually, I was looking into that. I think it came out in 2019, actually. So it actually came out like at the peak of box office at that time, because it was right before COVID. Things were looking pretty good. And even that film, though, Dumbo, was not able to get a lot of people out there. It was because of the darker tone, the darker themes. Families just did not want to go see it. They're like, I'm not bringing my kids to this. This looks like a creepy Tim Burton thing. And, sure enough, it seemed like that was indeed the case. Yeah, this is, I think, a situation where this movie is probably going to do about as well as Dumbo did. So we're talking about $350 to $400-ish million globally by the end of its run. And yeah, that means that we're talking about probably $150, $200 million in financial losses for this movie. So things are not going well. And I don't know why people like Tony at Deadline continue just to try to shill for these movies and try to paint the most pretty picture they possibly can for these films. And even when they're mentioning another movie that should be a sign of a failure, like Dumbo, they're trying to say, hey, it's doing better than that one. It's ridiculous.
Disney knew this was going to be a bomb, right? I mean, the way this has been set up over the last couple of years. Well,
they were already
Sedler's mouth.
Yeah, they were prepping for it.
They had to have just like, let's just get this thing out and done and over with, so we can move on to whatever our next phase of
Thursday morning. They were dropping Stitch posters. It's like, don't you have a big movie opening? Yeah, in a month or two they do. They're moving past this because they knew. Just to kind of put this in perspective, Little Mermaid, which ended up making just over $500 million, I think it was, that opened at 10.5 million in previews. Snow White did 3.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Odin's pretty much right. Like I wouldn't be surprised if it even goes lower than that. Yeah. I was thinking now with this kind of opening, we're looking at like the 275 range, maybe.
And the only reason I'm not going that low is because never count out the female demographic. Because they when it comes to like Mufasa, for instance, there's no reason that film should have gotten $700 million. Like that movie was not good in any way, and yet it legged out. It's because we know Disney oftentimes puts vice grips on the theaters by saying, oh, you want our movie? You want to have some box office? Well, guess what? If you want to have it, you have to have X amount of 3D showings, X amount of IMAX showings. If you don't have this exact thing, you don't get our movie. That's basically what they do. And something that a lot of studios do, but they are the most egregious. I remember when I worked in a theater in New Orleans, I knew of a single theater called the Britannia, beautiful historic theater down in New Orleans. And the Britannia only has a single screen. And so whenever they would get a Disney movie, they were basically forced to not have any promotion for any other movie showing at the same time as long as they had that movie, or at least for the first 2 weeks that they had that movie. And so they oftentimes had to like go under the radar and say, we're actually having a midnight showing of another movie, because they couldn't really promote anything else.
It seems like these theaters, like Major Chai Chai's chat in their kind of highlights, they could put almost anything up against these Disney movies and probably sell just as many tickets these days, because these Disney movies are so stupid. It feels like they're just money grabs. They're just stupid remakes of things that were popular already, and they have to like redo them and put their stupid nonsense into them.
Well, Odin, what I found interesting in both Hollywood Reporter and Variety's kind of like take on this is when they call back with Little Mermaid and Dumbo and stuff like that, they're always qualifying that by saying not adjusted for inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And you like to point out that inflation actually plays a big role in, you know, these box office numbers, but that actually means the greater the inflation, the less tickets are sold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And that's the thing, like no matter which way you do it, because some people also hate whenever I bring up inflation, they get triggered by it. And I'm always just like, stay triggered, guys, because I'm going to keep on bringing it up.
Yeah.
Because, you know, sometimes they make a good point to say, well, it's better if you just look at the ticket sales because that's more accurate. It's like, okay, I think both show the same thing, though. And you really end up seeing that. Whether you're comparing the total global box office or even just the domestic box office of a film from a different era, from a different time, if you are comparing them and then adjusting for inflation, guess what? The value of the dollar was worth a lot more back 20, 30 years ago than it is today. I mean, that's a surprise to some people, but hey, that's the truth. And so you also, though, you could look at it from tickets were only $5 at this point in time. Tickets were only $2 at this point in time. Well, guess what? That means that a $200 million movie making $200 million right back at a certain time for $2 a ticket, that's a lot of people going to see that movie. Whereas if you have $200 million made today, but it's $13 to $15 per ticket, guess what? That's very little. That's very few people in comparison going to it.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's insane that, you know, and that's why, again, I always like to make fun of Tony, because Tony loves to bring up saying, oh, it's going to have the same weekend as Dumbo. It's like, no, Dumbo was made back in 2019. Not only has inflation happened, but ticket prices have changed, right? Because of that. So whether you're looking at one or the other, guess what? If it's making the same, quote, the same as Dumbo, it's making less.
Well, and the thing with ticket prices is the inflation on ticket prices is almost worse than gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because we went from when we were young kids, like it would cost you $3 to $5 tops to get into a theater. And we're talking when you're talking $5, you're talking like big cities in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get to the 90s,
minimum wage back when I was a kid was $3.35, and tickets were like $4, $3.50 to get into the movie. So
I usually spent like $3 a ticket, $3.75 somewhere in that region. You get into the 90s, that's when it started jumping up to $5-7 a ticket on average, then $7 to $10 on average. Now, just to go to a theater near me, I'm looking at spending easily $30 just to get one seat because you can't just go buy a ticket anymore, right? Because the people look at you funny when you do that too. They're like, well, you didn't go buy it online, but you can go over there and do it on the app. Because you know what they do? They get that convenience fee on top of it all. So by the time it's all said and done, it's like $27.99 just to go see a movie now. And that's before popcorn, before the popcorn bucket, for anything extra. And God forbid you're going to see an IMAX film. Then you're looking at the 30s, 40s plus just for one ticket in some cases.
And why do
It's
that
ridiculous.
when it's going to be on, Peacock Network in 2 weeks?
No,
anyway,
but the whole thing,
so.
that Odin's saying, though, is true, because this idea that all these movies are making bunch of money, it's like, yeah, they're doing great. Sure, Avengers, a lot of people went to see Endgame, but did nearly as many people go see Endgame as went to see the original Star Wars or Jaws or Exorcist or even Gone with the Wind for that matter? Because if we still go by actual tickets sold, I still think Gone with the Wind is by far the winner. So like even Star Wars is like what, 4th or 5th in line, I think, behind a bunch of other things. So like
I gotta go look.
And to give context, like the last bit of context here, because we've been mentioning a lot of things. So they mentioned Dumbo. Okay, so if this film, Snow White, makes $45 million this weekend, that's just the domestic number, right? Dumbo, if you adjust for inflation, made $56 million. in its opening weekend. So again, for Tony to say, oh, it's doing the exact same. It's like, no, actually, when you adjust, Dumbo had a $10 million, $11 million advantage up against the $45 million being projected here. For context, Little Mermaid made $98 million when you adjust. The Cinderella live action from 2015 made $91 million, and Mufasa Lion King made $35. So this is an opening between Mufasa and Dumbo, and people are going to say, oh, but it could leg out like Mufasa. Again, it could happen. The female demographic and bringing the dollies to the theater, like that could absolutely be the case. But because of the stank on this movie, it reminds me a lot of the stank on Dumbo, more so than the stank on Mufasa.
Well, also, Odin, because of Rachel Zegler and her comments and her outspokenness, a lot of conservative mothers. Sorry, that's my neighbor with the motorcycle.
You live next door to Batman and he's got a jet?
I live next door to the Hells Angels is what I live next door to. Yeah, so the thing here is that they basically cut their female demographic audience in half, essentially, because no conservative mother wants to take their kids to see, to support Rachel Zegler, basically. But Brian, one of the interesting things leading up to this weekend was that for early previews and stuff like that, people were going online and taking pictures of these empty theaters. They were showing what seats had been sold on the online apps and stuff like that. And basically, Newsweek made an entire article going through some of this stuff. And we got our friend Chrissy Mayer on here. It's like Saturday night, 7:30 p.m., 0 tickets sold. Snow White is DOA. And that's just one of many kind of anecdotal tales about empty theaters for this movie. What do you think that means for the overall box office of Snow White?
I mean, we'll see more when we get to. I mean, I'm not sure how long it's going to run, but there is spring break coming up for kids, and so we might see more theater visits from families when they have a lot more time. It's funny. This movie, if it came out 2 weeks prior, would have gotten. They would have been competing with themselves. So they couldn't do that. But usually the movies come out around some kind of 4-day weekend or something.
Well, this was spring break for all the kids out there. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have our spring break this week. So.
I see. Oh, so spring break for me is in a week.
Easter break is a different thing. If you're thinking of Easter break,
perhaps Easter. Yeah, I mean it could. I watched the movie. It's not good or bad. It's sort of, it's bad because you could have made it good. It's like a classic story. You could have made a really good movie here, and it's just sort of whatever. Rachel Zegler is not the right choice. Good singer, not the right choice.
I heard it ends with a Diddy party.
I love Gal Gadot, but that's not the right choice. Everything, you have bad choices for the characters. Bad choices. It feels like it's two movies in one. There's a lot of weird things about the movie that don't make sense. It could have been a really good movie. You could have just retold the story you already told. The one that everyone loves. I don't know why you thought all your other live action movies are pretty much retellings of the original movie. But this one, you took a weird detour halfway through. I don't understand it. I'm sure it has something to do with the message or some kind of agenda-driven writing. I can't tell you why. But it doesn't mean that it's totally DOA. I mean, I guess if spring break is happening, it's still dead. I still think there's some time for it to get some play. But who knows?
I was just looking at my local theater, the one we all go to around here, for today's 4:00 showing, which I feel like is prime time for taking your kids to a movie, because it's right before it's still on the matinee prices, right? There's 12 tickets have been sold to the 4:00 show at the Galaxy Theater here.
And that's all I've seen all week is empty theaters, screens where people are at the screenings where they're the only one in the screenings. Because Odin's right, because Disney will come in and make a theater, especially depending on how many screens you have. You have to have so many screens of that, and it's this is not going to set well for the next time around, other than Lilo and Stitch, when they're like, well, you're going to have to take this movie for X amount, and they're like, well, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, I think
that's what's going to happen.
I think that movie's going to do fairly well.
That's the only one I think that they have any confidence in right now that is going to do well. That comes out at the end of May. I think we've got one other big movie between now and then, which I think is the Thunderbolt. So they're like basically keep competing with themselves throughout this time.
Is that a
period.
big
Technically,
movie?
Minecraft comes out April 4th.
No,
so
but
that
it's
would be
not
competition
Minecraft.
for the same, but like
Yeah,
younger
but-
audience.
yeah.
Like that's the.
You know what's gonna be funny?
competition.
Oh, I just said that, and Minecraft will end up outgrossing Snow White.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
probably.
it will.
It will.
hilarious.
It'll end up making like
Yeah.
$400, $500, $600 million, and Snow White, like I said, it'll make like 275 somewhere
Dutch.
in there. Yeah.
Dutch, I wanted to ask you, what role do you think Rachel Zegler has played in this boondoggle for Disney?
Oh, I think she's probably cost them at least $50 million in if not more. You know, I mean, she's just a kind of a repulsive, repugnant little twerp. I mean, you know, there's nothing about her that makes me want to go, oh, I'm gonna go buy a ticket. You know, she's like there with Zendaya. It's like, oh, I mean, I'd rather go watch a Zendaya movie, to be perfectly honest with you, than a Rachel Zegler movie. So yeah.
Don't you even try to compare them? How dare you, Dutch?
I know, man. You know, and I'm the world's biggest Zendaya defender. You know,
Dutch,
so
did you see the
Right.
meme about Rachel Zegler's back hair?
I did. Well, I kind of like the little girl hairs on the back of her back because they're soft. You know,
You didn't meet your wife on no camping trip. Your
The way
wife's
you
a
said that
Bigfoot,
was
isn't
also
she,
the
Gus?
weirdest thing. Gosh.
Like
Shave the bitch down and you taught her to speak.
little soft hairs.
She
Yeah.
can't speak well, Gus. She's all out there weird.
My
I
my
thought-
buddy
look,
that saw that said, "Look, you've never slept with a Latina if you think that the back
don't-
hair is."
I don't think
gross.
I don't think that's weird at all.
No, not at all.
In fact, I think it was kind of a weird take. She's got
Yeah.
plenty more things to.
I mean, I think she
bothered.
bothered us more so in the nerd community. I think the
Little
thing that
fuzz.
hit the mainstream that was kind of funny with this whole Snow White thing was Peter Dinklage and the dwarves.
Yeah,
I think that hit the mainstream a
Yeah.
lot more than the Zegler stuff. I mean, yes, it did, and there were people that were turned off by her.
Mhm.
But I mean, even Bill Maher was talking about the dwarf thing like last night on Real Time and whatnot.
Sure.
And I've seen it so many other places where they've had other dwarves have said, you know, this whole thing with Peter Dinklage, you know, basically screwing little people out of roles. And we even vicariously talked to somebody who was gonna go in for an audition, and then they got a phone call saying not to bother right after the Peter Dinklage come out publicly and said that. So it's not like Disney wasn't going to have. I think they were going to have little people do the motion capture for the dwarves, right? Because as I've always stated, the dwarves were always going to be in the movie. They were just going to be different. They were going to be the magical creatures, which they ended up being, or whatever. In the
Anyone
end,
else
so.
find it ironic that in order to promote diversity, Disney did less diversity in
Yeah.
the movie?
I don't think
Well,
I don't think they see little people as diverse.
No.
Yeah, they're like equivalent with Asians to Hollywood, right? Like they aren't technically
Right.
like a different race, I guess. But Tom, I wanted to ask you real quick. So before the movie came out with its closed premiere, you saw this big blitz in legacy media talking about how wonderful this movie was and how great Rachel Zegler was. And online, everyone was saying like, oh, the haters are going to be mad because this movie is actually good. What was your take on the shill media basically trying their hardest to help this movie open?
I think that was Disney pushing the idea that we really have to sell this movie, and the thing that they knew was a big problem besides the dwarves was her and a little angry dwarf named Rachel Zegler. And they were going as far as throwing Gal Gadot under the bus,
Yeah.
right? Like, look, I get it. I don't like it when actors get into politics, but Gal Gadot actually has something to say about this. She was in the Israeli military. You know, this is where she comes from. She has, you know,
Yeah.
her opinion. She's finally speaking out on it. It's been a while and she's been silent. And yet they tried to equate that with what Rachel Zegler's done. It's like, no, last time I checked, this bitch wasn't from Palestine, right? Like, what the hell does she have to do with anything going on over there? And the fact that you have her pinned against your other main star is not a good look for a movie at all.
Right.
It's not. You know, it would be like if in reality, like in Rocky IV, like Ivan Drago was really a Russian at the time. Like how that would have worked out in reality. Like it just would have been kind of, you know, awkward for everybody. But even that wouldn't have been as bad as this. Like this is really bad because you even have these two going tit for tat a little bit here and there. Like, and it was more or less Zegler who was taking pot shots more than anything, and they're low key bullshit. And it's stuff that everybody was picking up on, and they saw how they were kind of like, you could tell they were not in tune at all at the Oscars, right?
Mhm.
Like, so that is a big problem. The movie itself was one that nobody ever asked for. I always knew it was going to do worse than Little Mermaid, because Little Mermaid is one of their biggest franchises, right? Like, there's a few things that I know about Disney, and that is the 3 things that always sell are Little Mermaid, Stitch, and Cars.
Mhm.
That's one thing that I'm always told, and Snow White is probably nowhere even near that. Like, and I even pointed it out the other day, and Odin will back me up on this. Snow White has been released 3 times in the last 20 years. Once on DVD, once on Blu-ray, and once on 4K. You know how many times Little Mermaid has been released? At least 5. They did like 1 or 2 DVDs. They did the regular Blu-ray, the 3D Blu-ray, and now the 4K Blu-ray. Right? So like that has had multiple releases compared to like Snow White, where it's there, it gets noticed because it's the first, but that's probably the only reason it still does. It's very quaint by compared to the other Disney films.
Tom, maybe you can relate to this. To me, I'm 55, okay? And even to me, Snow White, when I was a kid, was that scary ass Disney movie that was put out 100 years ago. It's like we all knew it was their first one, but it was just, I never really...
It's the only Disney movie that feels like it was made when it was made. That's what you're getting at, Dutch. Like,
I guess so.
It does feel like it was made in the 1930s. Like, you watch Snow White now, and it definitely feels that way compared to Pinocchio, which was only made a couple years later.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, like, yeah.
It never really felt like I something I needed to, like, see again or have remade, or...
The music
or
feels very
like,
1930s as well.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
Dutch,
honestly, that movie scared the shit out of me, to be perfectly honest with you. The Witch was terrifying. And it's just, I don't know, it's like Bambi. I never really had a connection with these movies like I had with like The Fox and the Hound, or Robin Hood, or and even, or The Jungle Book. And even The Jungle Book was like before my time. I think it was made in the 50s or something, right? So
Sword in the Stone.
Yeah, those are
So you like
great
the
movies.
latter Disney stuff, basically.
I guess so. I guess that's just more my generational stuff. So that's why I can't see why anybody with like a little kid or a little girl or whoever why they would even care or be interested in going to see a modern telling of a 130-year-old movie.
I mean, Wicked is based on a product that came out originally. What? The books came out in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and the first movie was not the first movie, but the one that we associate as being the first.
I mean, it made more sense to me that they redid, like Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid were my kids' movie. My daughters grew up wanting to be like Ariel, especially my redheaded one. But they had no connection to Snow White. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it seemed like a weird thing to do. But
Dutch, you know what we do have connections with are super chats.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring this up again. Mexican Iron Man chiding me for failing as a producer.
Yeah.
Because this is important, because Mark's 47, member for 19 months, says, I too, rather annoyed. So to make it up to everyone who had super chats, questions for RMB, I'm going to message him after we're done. I'm going to pass your questions along, and then next Saturday I will read his response just for you guys, because I feel bad. All right. Mephisto's movie reviews for 15 Israeli, is it shekels?
Shekels.
Is that what it is? If politics isn't your flavor, we cover 300 on the Real McCoy podcast. So over on...
Full of homoerotic goodness.
Yes. So Zack Snyder's 300 is going to be on the Real McCoy after this show is over.
Listen, man, the politics involving the Greek senators and everything between them and Sparta it's a very political movie. It's very political. So don't be thinking you're not being political there, because you are.
And Major Chai Chai for $5 at my local theater, Princess Mononoke 4K IMAX is showing more tickets pre-purchased for next week than Snow White this weekend.
Right.
That is
Makes
rough.
perfect sense.
And we have the Mum, a member for 1 month. Stitch will get a $450 million opening, $2 billion after 6 weeks global. You may have covered George Foreman, RIP, great man. Yes, George Foreman unfortunately passed away. We usually don't like to talk about deaths on the show, just to keep things a little bit lighter. but his grill shall live on.
Made a hell of a grill. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
made
did.
a hell of
Hell of a grill. Hell of a grill.
I don't see it making $2 billion in 6 weeks.
No, that's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
No.
Yeah. You know what else isn't going to happen, guys, is we're not going to get a good James Bond movie because Amy Pascal, the former head of Sony, the one who invented the all-female Ghostbusters movie, is apparently the front runner for Amazon to take over the Bond franchise. Now, if you guys have been watching us, you know that we covered a little bit a while ago that Amazon has bought out Barbara Broccoli in terms of creative ownership of James Bond. And now we have this article from Hollywood Reporter that says Amy Pascal and David Heyman are in talks to oversee James Bond franchise for Amazon MGM. So if you guys don't know who David Heyman is, he was the producer of the Harry Potter movies. He's a Brit. And Amy Pascal is a radical feminist who kind of lucked into producing Spider-Man movies. And that's been kind of sustaining her career. But Tom, I want to throw this to you first and foremost. What's your take on Amy Pascal taking over Bond?
I hate giving her a little credit. Before the Ghostbusters thing, she was a successful producer. In fact, this is not the first time she's been involved with Bond. People forget that she was one of the producers or people around Sony when Casino Royale and they rebooted the whole Bond thing with Daniel Craig. So she's been involved with this before. Yeah, look, I love job security, Matt. So as long as they keep doing stupid shit like this, great. If anything, she's just there for personnel reasons and because she has had some attachment to the franchise before, and they let this David Heyman guy handle most of the creative decisions because, as you said, you look at his filmography, he's actually got a lot of stuff, and he's been in the business now for like 40, almost 35 plus years or something like that. Like one of his first movies he produced was The Stoned Age with Trimark Entertainment, which is one of their more profitable films, believe it or not. But yeah, so this is going to be something. What, I don't know. We can't blame Amy for all of the female Ghostbusters things. That was Paul Feig's idea. She just bought into it. But what we can blame her for is Madam Web, because that started as the Glass Ceiling Project, and it came to fruition at the end with Madam Web, even though she had nothing to really do with it at that point. But as you pointed out, yeah, she made sure when she was booted from the Sony lot that she got her hooks into Spider-Man as she left, because between the box office of Ghostbusters, Amazing Spider-Man, and the email leaks, that really made her look bad because she had said and done a lot of stupid shit behind the scenes that got her in the position she was in. So either she's hopefully learned something. If not, yeah, I don't know what the fuck they're thinking.
She seems slightly based. I don't think she's fully based in any way, but I just was like, I was like wondering what movie she produced. And then I came across this quote about the gender pay gap. It says, people want to work for less money. I'll pay them less money. I don't call them up and go, can I give you some more? What women have to do is not work for less money. People should know what they're worth and say no. And I'm like, yeah, that's...
Yeah, one of the things that got her in big trouble is in one of her emails when 12 Years a Slave or whatever it was came out. She's like, we should invite the Obamas. They're black. They like these kind of movies. She's the one who famously also threw a sandwich at Kevin Feige and fucking admitted it. We were the first ones to report on it. We had heard that when Kevin Feige came in to propose the deal with bringing Spider-Man into the MCU, she threw a fucking sandwich at him and told him, get the hell out.
That's awesome.
This is the kind of person she is. She is very she's kind of like the female Les Grossman. From what I've heard,
she kind of looks like him.
Straight up, egotistical maniac, basically. And yeah, so
with giant hands.
All right, get ready, kids. Buckle up, because this is gonna get wild. No, who knows what she's gonna come up with? At least
hairy forearms, golden chains.
She's straight, at least I think as well. So maybe Bond will be a straight white man who looks good. Henry Cavill, perhaps.
I don't know about that. Brian.
She does have her feminist views, though. You are right about that.
Yeah, Brian. So Jennifer Salke seems to be, or I should say, Amy Pascal seems to be championed by Amazon Studios Senior VP, Amazon Studios head Jennifer Salke, and head of film and streaming Courtney Valenti. So we know that Jennifer Salke is a famous star fucker. Essentially,
yeah, she
just throws money around in order to hang out with celebrities. and she's also very heavily feminist and DEI forward and stuff like that. And she seems to think that that Amy Pascal is the woman for the job of Bond. What's your take on that?
Same as Tom's. I think that she'll probably do a good job. And Amazon is famously, or at least recently, they pretty much back creative, which means that it's gonna live and die based on Amy, because they don't really get in the way. And so you have shows like Reacher that does really well, and shows like Rings of Power that do poorly. And I think it's because they just sort of let their creatives do whatever they want. And when it's a good creative that understands the source material and actually tries to create something good, then you get something good. And when it's a bad creative that doesn't understand the source material and just wants to, and they're trying to push a message, or they're just half-assing it, then you get something bad, like Rings of Power. So I think this is probably a good sign, actually. And I think that the way Amazon works with its creatives will make it easier for her to create a good movie or TV show, whatever they're doing.
Well, Mr. Butters, does this news fill you with any confidence that Amazon's James Bond properties will be any good?
The quick answer, no. No, it does not. So I have no expectations for whatever they do with the next Bond.
That helps. Having no low bar.
Yeah, all we can do is just kind of sit back and watch it, because and see how they see what they do. I mean, I don't know what else to add to the conversation. I think what you guys said gave me a little bit of hope. I kind of like it that this lady's a little bit based, but then I also remember, like you said, you told me that she's the one responsible for Ghostbusters 2016, and that is an absolute train wreck. That,
I mean, not entirely though. It wasn't just her.
Well, but she was there. She's, and it's just, I don't know, man. I'm worried for Bond. I am a little bit worried for the James Bond franchise right now. So, but
I guess it helps that
I guess we'll see. Yeah,
Right?
I don't really care a whole lot either. I guess just
It was already kind of at rock bottom in a way.
Yeah,
if you think about it.
yeah.
So
Well, I'm so kind of just disenfranchised with pretty much entertainment in general right now that anymore it's just kind of, I have just kind of a sit back and see what happens kind of approach to almost everything. So it is what it is. I mean, what's going on back there?
What in the heck is going on?
My dog has learned how to open doors. So-
That's fantastic.
yeah, sorry about
they
that.
open doors now.
They
Like
open doors
raptors?
now. Yeah.
Little
He
velociraptor.
uses his little paws. He's super smart. It's terrible.
But in the end, I guess I
Clever
can just
girl.
say, I as long as they keep screwing it up, I guess we'll have stuff to talk about, because talking about stuff that's actually really good is kind of boring, to be honest with you. So
It is a little bit boring. But Odin, I wanted to ask you, so David Heyman, he's been kind of overlooked in this article, but he was the guy, like he's like the hardcore movie producer dude. Say hi to Jude, everyone.
hi, Jude.
Hi, Jude.
Can I ask your viewership their opinion on my outfit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Come on in.
Going to a smutty book convention. Is this giving librarian who's already told you to be quiet once?
Yeah, chat.
Way
So
too
we-
spicy for YouTube.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's
Trying to
way-
get us
it's way too
demonetized.
spicy for you too. Yeah. Gonna get us demonetized. Yes. So very rare Jude appearance, Jude sighting. But Odin, I wanted to ask you. So David Heyman, he's the guy who basically produced all the Harry Potter movies. So I'm guessing that basically he's going to be in charge of like the day-to-day like Bond production, and Amy Pascal is going to be the one coming up with the ideas for all the spin-offs and the cinematic Bond universe and all that other crap. So what's your take on this news? Do you think that this is a positive or a negative for Bond?
It's potentially positive, right? It's obviously still too early to tell. Just because you have a certain producer or a certain executive producer does not always necessarily mean that everything's going to fall into place. You still have to have the right directors, the right actors, the right writers, right? And that's just something that we just do not know at this point. I would say that there seems to be a bit more hope than maybe there was yesterday, but because of how much damage has been done to the Bond name and the franchise in general, I do think it's going to take quite a bit for them to recover. So I'm hoping that they really just sit down and think, okay, who is someone that we can cast that's going to really revitalize this franchise, that can really bring things back? Because whereas I would almost rather than put a no-name or someone more unknown in a role like that and try to rebuild around that person, I think that to get things back on track, they need to get a name. And that's why someone like a Henry Cavill, I think, would be, someone that could actually maybe, bring some interest back into it. And then hopefully have it be where it's like, okay, let's just have him for a Bond for 2-3 movies and then be able to kind of, work up to and prepare someone in the wings that could then, take it on in a new light, right? To kind of bring back the whole concept of, you have a Bond for a few films and then a new Bond comes along and passes the torch kind of thing. But they really they have a lot of work to do. And so if anyone could do it, it seems like they're, again, could this group do it? They could. I think that you have like kind of the history there that could potentially lead to some success, but it's never a guarantee.
Dude, if they got Henry Cavill, oh my God, I would simp so
Yeah.
hard.
Where's your I Love Wieners hat, Brian?
Yeah. I don't know what happened to it. But yeah. Here we go. If they got Henry Cavill, here's what I'm wearing the rest of the time. Right here. With a little Henry Cavill sticker or a pin. No, dude, Cavill is perfect for that role. God, it would be so good.
All right, guys. Well, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank our fantastic panel of nerds for being here today and sharing their thoughts. I'm sorry that Robert had to bounce early, guys. Like I said, I will be sending him your questions. I will read his responses on next week's show. But until then, Odin of OMB Reviews. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble. You can find me also, of course, on Twitter /X, and be on the lookout for box office breakdown video tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, around that time, talking about how big of a flop will Snow White be. Most films tend to make about a third of their entire box office globally in their opening weekend on average. So if the film has an average run and it makes $100 million globally, you're looking at probably a $300 million box office run. Now, obviously, films can do better or worse, but let's just say things are not looking all that great for it, especially with how much money it cost. And also be on the lookout for a Geeks and Gamers article on geeksandgamers.com. It should be out between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Depends on whenever the editor is able to get things done. Shout out to Alex over geeksandgamers.com, who does a lot of great work over there. Thank you, as always, for having me.
Yep, geeksandgamers.com, great resource. Tom Connors Jr., any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
I like turtles and yeah, fun stuff.
What type of cereal do you like, Tom?
Well, I sure as hell wouldn't be eating no fucking Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
That's the best.
Do I look like a savage?
Come on, bro.
But it's
Fruit Loops
delicious,
and
then you can
Applejack.
drink
You're
it
one of
after.
those
It's
people that thinks that
delicious,
fruit,
bro.
you're one of those people that thinks that each Fruit Loop has a different flavor too, don't you?
Try it.
I hate Fruit Loops.
Tom probably eats that fiber cereal that looks like little sticks.
I buy Lucky Charms, but I only eat the marshmallows.
Yeah, Tom's a grape nuts guy.
They're always after me, Lucky Charms.
All right,
Why
Brian.
do you
From
laugh
the
at me
pop-
when I say that? No, actually, this
from-
morning I had Honey Bunches of Oats with strawberries in it.
Ooh, fancy. That's why he was late, guys. Has to finish that honey
A
bunches.
big
of
old plate of bacon.
Brian from the Popcast. Any final
Hey.
thoughts? Where can people find more of you? And what are you going to be talking about on the Brain Show coming up right after this?
Tesla, RFK, Vials, Severance, all kinds of good stuff, conspiracy theories. It's going to be a fun show. I hope you guys can join us. Shane is back, and he has a brand new computer. He was just so tired of all of the problems. And last week, his computer broke, and he's like, you know what? I'm over it. I'm not repairing this thing. I'm taking the video card, which is the only thing that's worth anything. I'm going to Best Buy, and I'm going to get a brand new computer. And I'm like, good luck, bro. So he's got a new one. It's going to be a good show today in about half an hour or so.
Sweet.
And we have our new documentary coming out in the next probably week and a half. Shane's supposed to have the script to me by tomorrow. So it takes me about, 7 or 8 days to edit. So maybe not next weekend, but the following weekend we have our brand new, and I can't tell you what it is, but it's It's a cinematic classic science fiction film. It's the only reason most science fiction in its current form exists. You don't want to miss it. Probably the following weekend.
All right. Well, make sure Shane wears his "I Love Wieners" hat on the Brain Show.
He
Everyone wants
refuses.
to see that.
He
Everyone wants
refuses.
to see that. Yeah. Dutch Butters. Any final thoughts and what's going on the Salty Nerd Gaming channel?
You know, it was awesome having Rob here today. Again, sorry you guys, we didn't get to those super chats, but you know, we live and we learn. Awesome having you guys all here as always. Odin, Brian, Tom. It's always fun to talk to you guys. Over on Salty Nerd Gaming channel, we're doing 4 to 5 live streams a week, every night, late night when I get home from work. Tonight we're going to be we're going to be venturing into a new game called the Forever Winter. It's a shooter game. It's in early access right now, but they've just released a big new patch. I think it was about a week ago, and I wanted to check it out and play the game with some friends of mine. So Forever Winter tonight, and also we're going to be doing some Helldivers and some body cam this week as well. So we're branching out into other games. We're not just doing Helldivers anymore. So we're having fun over there, playing some games and doing multiple
Can't wait till you guys play
things.
Dota.
So, you and I are going to, I know I've been saying it for months that you and I are going to play, but we're going to
great.
do it. I guess got to figure out when. So
Or Elden Ring. Have you played Elden Ring yet?
I have not played Elden Ring.
Ah,
Man, your
we like
dog is
that.
just like awesome.
Savage.
You're gonna.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna have to get a lock for that door. Yeah.
He
Change the
just-
doorknob or something.
It's coming in like Kramer. What's up? What you doing, man? What's up?
Yeah, no,
You taking me for a walk, bro?
Now
Or are you
now he's
ignoring
talking.
me?
Oh,
like the entire house is just like open to him now because he can just open any door. It's crazy. But Jude's left, so he's very sad. So guys, I want to give a big shout out to everyone who gave us super chats: Mexican Iron Man, Major Chai Chai, Art to the Icky, Scotty Dub, Jay Frazier 360, Marks 47, Hemorrhoid Hertz, John Yulden, and Mephisto's movie review. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate that. Your support keeps us going. And Scotty Dub, top contributor, secured your spot yet again. So thank you for that. But until next week, guys, we're going to be keep on keeping on. So come back, same salty time, same salty channel. And as always, stay salty, my friends.